All right, everyone, here we go. Notes for Chapter 11, talking about single voice copy at this point. And we're expanding our conversation here from what we did in Chapter 4, where we talked more about monologues, and now we're going to look at various other types of single voice copy. So the myth of working solo, we're going to try to unpack it a little bit here. Voice acting is not about your voice, interestingly enough. Voice acting is not about your voice. People don't hire you, don't come to hear what you have to say because it's you and it's your voice. Voice acting is about what you can do with your voice. It's about the different intonations. It's about the volumes. It's about the tempo and the timing and the pacing and all of those things in the way that you string words together to be able to communicate a message. Because of this, you don't have to have a great voice. And when we have great voice there in parentheses, because we're not necessarily saying, you need to have a decent speaking voice. We've talked about that before. But many times when people think, oh, you have a great voice, it's that idea that you have that deep resonance, or you have ways of projecting your voice to be able to fill a room, that there's a command, there's an authority that comes about with your voice. And there is a market for that. There is a place for that kind of vocal characterization, but that's not the only thing that is necessary in terms of voice acting. We need all kinds of different voices to be able to communicate all kinds of different messages to all different types of audiences. So it's not about the sound in and of itself that comes out of your mouth. It's about the way that you can adjust the sound of your mouth. It's the way that you can make the messaging that you're giving work for you and become effective in communicating a message. Voiceover work has expanded into dozens of genres, and there have been hundreds of changes in the way that we work as voice actors. Just talked about one of them, that you don't need to have that deep, authoritative voice. Not all the time, not for all things. As a matter of fact, because there are so many different ways that voices are used nowadays, everything from various cartoon characters to different types of conversational styles, it is much more common nowadays to be able to have voices that sound much more like normal people, because normal people relate to normal people. There's also the need for voices that are a little off kilter, that sound different and strange and unique, because we pay attention to those as well, and they have a certain value. So there's many opportunities for many different types and styles and sounds of voices to be able to make it in the voice acting world. All right, tell me, don't sell me. We're talking here about the idea of not necessarily just being given a pitch when we're listening to somebody speak, especially if we're talking about commercial production. Again, the days of the smooth, deep voice announcer, by and large, they're long gone. Again, there's still a place for them, but it's not the end-all, be-all. Today's trend in advertising is for a younger voice, speaking in a conversational tone with the advertiser's message often woven into a clever telling of a story. People want to hear, in a normal conversational way, what it is that you have to say. And people are more apt to listen to commercial messages that are given that way, as opposed to what we would think of as your stereotypical pitchman, unless there's a unique quality to that pitchman that makes him or her attractive in and of itself. Generally, casual conversational style tends to be the trend for what is accepted and well received today. It's all about the story. We've been saying that over and over and over throughout this course. Because there is only one character speaking in a single voice copy, any interaction is implied, either between the character speaking and any unheard other characters that the story may imply are around, or it's between the performer and the listener himself, herself. So in either case, there's still a communication that's going on. There's still a message being portrayed. There's still an interaction that is happening, sender and receiver. It's just a matter of whether the receiver is a character that is not heard during the production, or if the other character is the listener. And again, that's part of knowing who the audience is and crafting your message to meet the needs of the audience. You're meeting them where they are at. A well-written commercial will put the advertiser's message or product in the context of a compelling story that will motivate or inspire the listener to take the desired action. So we're not just trying to communicate a message. We're trying to elicit some sort of a response from the audience member. We want them to make a phone call or visit a store or go to a website to have some sort of actionable response based on the things that we have said. Advertising copywriters will write a commercial script to reach a specific demographic group or a target audience because it's the demo that a client wants people to hear, and they want to reach those people because they're people that are hopefully interested in the product or service that they're offering. However, you as a voice actor, your performance must be focused on speaking to only one person. That creates the authenticity in the message that you are sending. To just read a script, you get the words right, but you're not impacting and reaching the audience in an effective way. If you're communicating the message in a way that seems unnatural, you may not be as effective in reaching your audience either. You may wind up actually turning them off to what you have to say. And again, because audio is such an intimate medium, it's just between you and the listener. You need to be focused in speaking to that one person that needs to hear what you have to say, and you need to give that message in a way that they expect to receive it. Meet the audience where it's at. Meet that one person where he or she is at. The target audience of a single voice script can usually be determined pretty easily. However, sometimes it can be a challenge to define the character that is speaking. So one way to kind of handle that, to determine who your character is to make sure that you fully understand the story. Know exactly what it is that you're talking about. And as you know what you're talking about, you're also going to determine where the message is coming from. I mean, yes, it's coming from the scriptwriter. It's coming from the commercial client. But what character is giving voice to this? What's the background? What sort of attitude and tone is there? So understanding the story, understanding the intention, understanding the premise, that's all going to help you to be able to find that proper voice. Once you fully understand the story, you can then find your inner storyteller and commit to the attitude and the style choices that you make. And this is based on subtext, how you think and feel. The trend in single voice delivery, once again, toward having a conversation with another person. Make the other person the ideal person who needs to hear what you have to say and decide what your attitude will be as you speak to that person. We've talked about that already, just kind of restating it in a different way. Who is that one person that needs to hear about the product or service that you're talking about? Who is that one person that is going to be appealed, that's going to have an appeal, rather, to a particular, whatever it is, type of entertainment, type of food, on and on and on. Someone that needs repairs for their house. What's their mindset like at this point in time as you deliver this message talking about how they can get someone to repair their house? It's going to be important. Now, telling the story in time, and we're talking about literal time here. If you're voicing a spot message for broadcast, your goal should be to deliver the script in about half a second to a full second shorter than the length of the commercial. And this allows for various post-production elements, various types of editing to allow for different music beds, sound effects that may be put into place, that sort of thing. If you know that there's going to be a lot of different sound effects, you may not have the full 30 seconds or the full 60 seconds. So you want to try to deliver that content in a second or so underneath the actual length of the commercial. Your editing team will thank you for that. Patrick Fraley says, you ought to read like a first grader. What does he mean by that? As you slowly work your way through the script, you will instinctively get a sense of the story and how to tell it. You will also discover complex phrases and difficult words. Think back to your first grade class. Remember when the teacher would have all of you students read around the room, take a paragraph at a time, and there would be the students that I kind of call it being unfunctionally literate, where they're reading through and sounding out the words. They're very intentional about making sure that they understand the word that they're saying and are getting it out correctly. Now, I'm not saying that you literally need to read that way, but you do need to slow down and you need to pay attention to the words that are being used, why those words are being used, what message those words are trying to convey, and how so. And as you do, you're going to pick up different ways that phrasing should be delivered, how it should be interpreted in your speech. So after you read through the first time in a slow manner, you can then pick up the pace as is appropriate and deliver that message with the intentionality that it deserves. Now, as far as script formats go, there's no real standards anymore. You may come across, especially from certain advertising agencies or radio stations that have been around for a long time, that they may use a script template where you may see line numbers and that there would be an estimate of how long it takes to get so many words out on a page and that sort of thing. So you do still see that. But by and large, there's not necessarily a required standard that happens with most production companies anymore. The important thing is to read everything on the page in order to fully understand the message and your character's role. And by the way, what I tend to do when I am writing and preparing to record a script is I kind of have a sense in my head how long it takes to read 30 seconds of copy or 60 seconds of copy, how many words I can get into that time frame within, using certain types of tempo and speech and those sorts of things. But ultimately, once I've written a script, I will actually read it out loud. I will read it for time to make sure that I indeed have 30 seconds of copy, or indeed have 60 seconds of copy, or however long the read is supposed to be. Trial and error. It's really going to be the best way, because even if there was an estimated time, different people read at different speeds and tempos naturally. So a 30-second script for me might be 25 seconds for you, might be 35 seconds for somebody else. So it's important to read through the script. Read it slowly first, then read it at a normal pace, read it for time. Some tips for performing single voice copy. First off, you are a storyteller, and stories are always about relationships. We've talked about this in a previous chapter. The relationship is either between you and other unintended characters in single voice copy or between you and the audience member. Find the relationship in the story that you are telling. Second, analyze the copy for character, mood, attitude, conflict, rhythm, all these other things. Make sure that you're paying attention to everything that's going on in that script. Look for the message, image, feeling, or unique quality that the advertiser wants to communicate to the listener. Ask yourself, what separates this product or service from its competitors? What's the unique selling proposition, for example? Why should a listener pay attention to this message and take action on this message as opposed to looking elsewhere for their wants and needs? Find the subtext, the thoughts, and the feelings behind the words. You're going to see this tip in just about every single aspect of voice acting. Find out what is really being said through the words, even though they may not be explicitly said. Determine who the one perfect audience is and why she should be listening to what you have to say. Who is that one person that you're talking to? Why would they be interested in what you're telling them? Are you telling them that message in a way that makes sure that they are interested in what you have to say? Speak conversationally, having the expectation of a response. We're basically doing a persuasive sort of communication here. We're telling someone about something that we think they're going to be interested in, and we want them to engage somehow with what we've just said. To make a phone call, to go to a website, to form an opinion, whatever it is, we're looking for the audience to do something. Maybe if it's a comedy skit, we're just looking for them to laugh. Whatever that response is that we're looking for, we want them to connect with what we're saying on some sort of an emotional level. And as it turns for commercial copy, we also want them to take a certain sort of action based on what we have said. Determine the creative strategy that will enable you to build dramatic tension and to allow for expression of the message. What exactly needs to happen with the words on the page? How are you going to deliver those lines to create the effect that you want? Deliver the first line of copy in a way that will interrupt the listener's thoughts and bring them in to listening to your story. You only have a couple of seconds to capture somebody's attention. Make that first line so important that it breaks through the noise and the clutter, that it perks the ears of the listener and they become intrigued by you. Finally, be careful to not telegraph the message. Again, don't give too much away. And also, don't just phone it in. Don't send a message saying, well, here comes another commercial. Again, you're trying to capture the attention of the audience. You want to make sure that you do that. And therefore, by communicating that message, you're doing so effectively because you've captured and maintained the audience's attention. So there you go. There's chapter 11. And in your notes this week, you have one more chapter to go to, chapter 12. I'll see you over there.